We're now officially halfway through the OHL team history videos. So, this is the 10th team out of 20. So, 10 more to go after this. And this one's a special one for me because I grew up watching the Kitchener Rangers. The very first hockey game I ever went to in the OHL was when the Kitchener Rangers took on the Detroit Junior Red Wings at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. And it left a lasting impact on me. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan of junior hockey, and it's really what got me into the career path that I'm on right now in broadcasting and covering the Ontario Hockey League as a play-by-play person with the Barrie Colts. So this one, like I said, it's a special one, and let's dive into it. The Kitchener Rangers got their start in 1963-64. Before that, though, they can look at their history in the city of Guelph. They were the Guelph Royals from 1960 to 1963, and before that started as the Guelph Biltmore Mad Hatters from 1947 to 1960. And the city of Guelph with the Mad Hatters, their claim to fame is that they started the tradition of the hat trick, throwing hats on the ice. And I know it's disputed, but the hat company that sponsored the team would actually give a new fedora to whoever scored the hat trick for Guelph on home ice. So it's a cool story there. I know there's a few teams that also claim they started the whole hat trick tradition, but for junior hockey, it started with the Guelph Biltmore Mad Hatters, who eventually became the Kitchener Rangers. And the Rangers, they're a very unique team because they're publicly owned. They're the only other team that's publicly owned in the OHL are the Peterborough Petes. So those two teams have something in common. But before that happened, though, the Kitchener Rangers were first sponsored by the New York Rangers and then sold to Eugene George for $1. Instead of making the team private, George, he turned the team over to the community. And that's why the team is still community owned to this day. So a pretty cool story there. And hence why they're known as the Kitchener Rangers, because of their sponsorship with the NHL's New York Rangers. That was something that was common in the 60s. We already did team history videos where the London Knights, they were sponsored by the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Oshawa Generals, sponsored by the Boston Bruins. So it's really cool just to see the roots of how the whole junior system's developed and why they're still known as the Rangers to this day. The Rangers, they also play in what may be one of the more famous junior hockey arenas, the Odd. It was built in 1950. It's basically the Maple Leaf Gardens of the OHL. If you haven't had a chance to take in a game at the Memorial Auditorium, highly recommend it. I know they've done upgrades over the last few years where they've added an upper bowl. They've had to raise the roof a couple of times to expand the facility, but it is well maintained, but we'll see how long that lasts. I know the city of Kitchener starting those talks again about should we replace the Memorial Auditorium. It's still a few years away before shovels are in the ground if they go that route, but as a junior hockey fan, and if you've never been to the Odd, I highly recommend it. It's my personal favorite to visit. You got the smell of the beer nuts, and you got the Oktoberfest sausage because, of course, KW known for Oktoberfest. So really a fantastic atmosphere to take in for junior hockey. I also covered the team from 2009 to 2011, and like I said, the atmosphere there, one of a kind. It's an arena that I love going back to, and every opportunity that I get to take in a game in Kitchener, I try to jump on. So hopefully this year, when the Barrie Colts make their trip to Kitchener, I'll be able to do a report from there as well. So let's look at the top 10 scorers in Rangers franchise history. Derek Roy leads the way, 147 goals, 188 assists, 335 points during his time with the Kitchener Rangers. Derek Roy, instrumental in the 2003 Memorial Cup run. He was so much fun to watch with the Kitchener Rangers, and it's really cool to see his name at the top of the list in franchise scoring. After that, number 2 is Trevor Gallant, 106 goals, 216 assists, 322 points. Andre Benoit is third overall in franchise scoring, 99 goals, 200 assists, 299 points. It's too bad he couldn't get that one goal to go 100 goals, 200 assists, but that's where he ended his career with the Kitchener Rangers. Fourth overall, Evan McGrath, 96 goals, 203 assists, 299 points. Then you have Adam Masherin, 122 goals, 174 assists, 296 points during his time with the Rangers. Then my favorite Kitchener Ranger growing up, Mike Richards. He is 6th overall in franchise history, 115 goals, 177 assists, 292 points. Then 7th overall is John Tucker, 116 goals, 172 assists, good for 288 points. And then Justin Azevedo, 8th overall in franchise scoring with 107 goals, 181 assists, 288 points. Azevedo, he was a shorter player, but he made up for it in his speed and his nose for the net. Quite the grinder, Azevedo. It's too bad he didn't have a longer stint in the National Hockey League, but he still got a taste of it. 9th overall is Jason Firth. He had 108 goals, 171 points, 171 assists, 279 points. And wrapping up the top 10, Sean Burr, 125 goals, 153 assists, 278 points. Let's shift our focus now to the goaltenders, and the winningest goalie in Rangers history is Wendell Young. He had 98 wins as a Kitchener Ranger, too short of 100. Second overall, Mike Torchia had a great run in the 90s with the Kitchener Rangers, ended up with 89 wins during his time. Scott Dickey, he's 3rd overall in franchise wins with 87. 4th is David Belitsky. He had 86 wins. And then 5th is Luke Richardson with 62 wins during his time with the Kitchener Rangers. Now, with Kitchener, they don't retire numbers, but they do honor numbers. Scott Stevens, his number 3 is in the rafters. Of course, he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame now. Al MacInnis is number 4. Number 6, Paul Coffey. 7, Bill Barber. Some amazing names from the blue line right there, those 4. Then you also have Larry Robinson, another defenseman. His number 19 is in the rafters. And then number 21 of Gary Crosby and 22 of Jim McGeechee. For those 2 players, their numbers are in the rafters because they both passed away in auto accidents when they were members of the Kitchener Rangers. That happening quite a while ago, and it's nice to see the team recognizing those 2 players as their careers were cut short in unfortunate circumstances. For Kitchener, 186 players have gone on to play in the National Hockey League at the time of recording, which is one of the highest totals out of all the teams in the Ontario Hockey League, so impressive stuff there. Looking at the playoff history of the Kitchener Rangers, I would love to go all the way back to the beginning because this team has had some incredible runs in the 70s, 80s, but I'm only going to go back as far as 2000. And still, the 2000s was quite the run for Kitchener. In 2000, they lost in the first round to the Sioux Greyhounds. That was in 5 games. 2001, they ended up missing the playoffs, but they returned in 2002, where they were defeated in the first round by the Guelph Storm in 4 games. 2003, though, a very magical season for the Kitchener Rangers. Pete DeBoer was on the bench as the head coach of the Kitchener Rangers at this time, and they would go on to win the OHL championship over the Ottawa 67s in 5 games. They would then go on to the Memorial Cup, where they were Memorial Cup champions against the Hull Olympique. And that run really is... I remember watching those games and from home and just wishing I could be there just to be in the atmosphere, but still quite an incredible run in 2003. Mike Richards, Derek Roy, part of that team. And it was something else to be in the city when the team was on that incredible run in 2003. After that, though, they would lose in the first round in 2004. That was against the Plymouth Whalers in 5 games. 2005, back to the Western Conference Final, losing to the London Knights in 5 games. That was a stacked London Knights team, but still quite the rivalry between the London Knights and the Kitchener Rangers. So get used to hearing the London Knights during this playoff history portion of the video. In 2006, the Kitchener Rangers knocked out in the first round by the Owen Sound Attack in 5 games. 2007, they lost in the second round to the Plymouth Whalers in 5. But in 2008, the Kitchener Rangers hosting the Memorial Cup, they had an amazing lineup and would end up winning the OHL championship in 7 games against the Belleville Bulls. In that season, the Kitchener Rangers had a 3-0 series lead over Belleville. It looked like Kitchener was going to sweep the Bulls, but with PK Subban and company they forced a game 7. It was kind of like what we saw with the Florida Panthers against the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup final this past season. But Kitchener, just like the Panthers, would end up winning it in game number 7. It was an incredible atmosphere. I was actually at that game number 7. It was so much fun to take in. And then, of course, Memorial Cup, they would go all the way to the final, where they ended up losing to the Spokane Chiefs. And that was the year, too, where when the Chiefs went to accept the Memorial Cup at center ice, the trophy broke and it fell apart. If you haven't seen that video, you can definitely find it on YouTube. It was quite the scene and the shock when the Memorial Cup trophy broke during the presentation at center ice. After that, in 2009, the Kitchener Rangers ended up missing the playoffs. 2010, though, quite the run. They went all the way to the Western Conference Final, where they lost to the Windsor Spitfires. And in that Western Conference Final, Kitchener was up 3-0 in that best-of-7 series. And then Taylor Hall for Windsor basically decided to take over the series, and Windsor would end up winning in 7 games. I ended up covering that series. That was my first year covering Kitchener, and the Rangers, they had Gabriel Landeskog, Jeff Skinner, Jeremy Moran. It was quite the lineup, but the Windsor Spitfires got the best of Kitchener in that season, but still an amazing run there for the Rangers. The following season, though, knocked out in the first round. That was in 2011. They lost in 7 to the Plymouth Whalers. In 2012, back to the Western Conference Final, this time losing in 4 games to the London Knights. 2013, Kitchener lost in the second round to the London Knights. That was in 5 games. 2014, Kitchener would miss the playoffs, but then return in 2015, where they lost to the London Knights in the first round in 6 games. Don't worry, we're not done with London yet, because in 2016, London would knock them out again, this time in the second round in 4 games. 2017, Kitchener knocked out in the first round. That was against Owen Sound in 5 games. 2018, though, they would go on a run. They would get to the Western Conference Final, go all the way to Game 7, where they were knocked out by the Sault Greyhounds. That was quite the battle between Sault Ste. Marie and Kitchener in 2018. 2019, again, a first-round exit, this time to the Guelph Storm in 4 games. Of course, COVID happened, so we didn't have a playoff in 2020 or 2021. So in 2022, Kitchener ended up losing the second round to the Windsor Spitfires in 5 games. In 2023, they were the 8th seed. They swept the Windsor Spitfires in the first round, who were the top seed. And then the second round, the Magic ran out, and they were knocked out by the London Knights in 5 games. So this past season in 2024, the Kitchener Rangers again knocked out in the second round. Again, the London Knights, this time in 4 games. As I mentioned, Kitchener, London, they have met so many times in the postseason. London, though, they've had the better of the Kitchener Rangers over the last 10 years or so. But still, when it's London versus Kitchener, you know you're in for a great game. The atmosphere at the Odd or at Budweiser Gardens is something else, especially in these rivalry games. But for the Kitchener Rangers, this is a team that's looking to the future. They've won the OHL title, though, a total of 4 times: 1981, 1982, 2003, and 2008. They've also won the Memorial Cup twice. That was back in 1982 and 2003. But the future here for Kitchener is solid. This team is going nowhere. Of course, the questions do remain. What do they do with the Memorial Auditorium? Do they build a new arena? Can they do more renovations? Time will tell. But it does look like Kitchener will put in a bid to try and host the 2027 Memorial Cup. So keep that in the back of your mind as we go into this season. I expect Kitchener will probably make some moves to acquire young talent and draft picks as they build up for that 2027 run. Because when you host the Memorial Cup, like we saw with Saginaw, you want to have a team that's going to be competitive. And I'm expecting that to be the case for the Kitchener Rangers if they do, in fact, go through with their plan to bid on the 2027 Memorial Cup. So this was a fun history video. Being the Kitchener Rangers, a team I grew up with. If you have a memory that stands out for you, type it out down below. Let me know your thoughts on the Kitchener Rangers. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We'll talk to you again soon.